Hello, it's Susan here again. Now I wonder, do you like food? I bet you do. I bet there's lots of different foods you like. Most of us are fortunate enough to have plenty of food. However, there's still times when we feel hungry. Can you remember a time when you felt hungry? How did it make you feel? Perhaps you had been out for the day and you got home late. Or maybe you'd been doing something exciting or spending time with friends and you just lost track of time. Your tummy maybe started to rumble, a sign that it was time to get something to eat. Our bodies need food to work properly, and when we're hungry, we might become grumpy or impatient. I know I do. So our story today is from a book of the Bible called Matthew, and it's a story that starts. Jesus had heard some bad news and he wanted to get away from the crowds, so he decided to go off into the desert to spend some time by himself. However, people decided to follow him. Not just a few people, there were crowds of people. Jesus didn't turn them away. He cured the people who were sick, and they spent quite some time there. As it got late, the disciples spoke to Jesus and said, I think you need to send them home so they can go and get some food. They knew they'd be hungry. Jesus said to their disciples, they don't need to leave. You feed them. Whoa! The disciples said, we've only got 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. Jesus asked the disciples to give him the food. And then he told the people to sit in the grass. They're probably feeling a bit tired by now. Jesus blessed the food and then asked the disciples to give it out to the people, which they did. Everybody, all those crowds of people had enough food to eat until they were full. And afterwards, the disciples walked around and they gathered up 12 baskets of leftover food, of bread and fishes. In the crowd that day, there were 5,000 men. And if they counted the women and children, it would have been even more. That was a story of people being fed, lots and lots of people. Now in this story, I've just told you, the disciples realised that it was getting late and the crowds of people would be feeling hungry. They noticed a need. They'd followed Jesus to this place out in the desert, and they'd have to travel to the villages in order to get some food. Can you imagine 5,000 people trying to buy food all at the same time? That's a lot of people. Imagine them all trying to get into the local co-op or into the big Tesco store at Bar Hill. I think that would be quite a queue. But the disciples must have been quite surprised at Jesus' answer. He told the disciples that they should give the people something to eat. Can you imagine how they felt? They hadn't come prepared with food for that many people. Do you remember what they said they had? They said they had 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Well, that wouldn't go far among 50 people, let alone 5,000 people. I wonder if they thought maybe Jesus was pulling their leg. Was he joking? I'm sure they were puzzled or maybe shocked. How was Jesus expecting them to feed all those people? And if that was their food, and they were feeling hungry, maybe they didn't want to share. But they did. They brought the food to Jesus. They didn't have much, but they brought what they had. And Jesus took what they gave him. He thanked God for it, for what they had brought to share. Then he gave it back to them to hand out to the people. Jesus used the disciples and the little they had brought to him to help solve the problem, to meet the need of those hungry people. The disciples were involved. They had a part to play in caring for the crowd. I wonder how we feel when we notice a problem. Maybe we think that other people should go and fix their own problems. Or maybe we feel that we aren't able to do anything. Maybe we think we're too young, or we don't have enough money, or somebody else could do it better. But in this story, the disciples do bring what they have, and Jesus enables them to solve the problem. The small amount they contribute is made bigger and bigger by God, so that in the end thousands of people have enough to eat. And not only that, there was plenty to spare. This is a wonderful story of a massive picnic in the desert where we see God's generosity. What can we learn from it? I think there are 3 things I'd like us to remember from today's story. 1, we bring what we have, whether that is a little or a lot. 2, we thank God for what He has given us. And 3, we're prepared for God to use us to bless others. Over the next week, see if you can think about what God has given you and how you might share it with other people. And remember to thank God for it.